Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center, and all the way from San Francisco we have Kevin and Kayin with their fantastic documentary, Home is a Hotel. Let's take a look at the clip.
No one wants to live this way, being trapped in a mini studio where your table doubles as your bed. But, I'll take my blessings wherever I can get them because I definitely didn't have anywhere else to go. So I'm literally signed up on every Section 8 wait list that there is from here to Napa. So on that wait list since I was 18.
Thank you both for being here. Welcome to the New Filmmakers family, Kevin. Welcome
you.
back, Kayin, with your second film with us, right?
Yes.
Yeah, second film, so we're not too bad, Kevin, it's pretty good. Listen, I am so happy that you made the feature film that you did, and you did a fantastic job co-directing and then cinematography and then producing. But for those that haven't seen your documentary, tell us a brief synopsis.
Yeah, so Home is a Hotel follows five families or households living in or kind of housing in San Francisco called residential hotels or SROs. So for those that are unfamiliar, that's 8 by 10 rooms, a shared bathroom and kitchen with everyone on the floor. Sort of imagine like a dormitory or like a hostel kind of situation. And we follow these people over a period of 4 to 5 years and just kind of show folks what life is like living in the smallest possible apartment you could have in the city.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco obviously being one of the most expensive cities in the world as well, and I absolutely fell in love with the subjects that you captured in this. Where did it come about for you both in first joining together as a team? How did that come about, Kayin?
Well, my journey on the film has been quite a journey. I started out as a translator because they were filming with our subject in Chinatown, Christina, and needed translation for Cantonese to English.
Oh, great.
And so that's how I joined the team.
Yeah.
And then along the way, I really fell in love with the project and also wanted to contribute more. And then they needed much more support as well. So became a producer and then eventually co-director.
Oh, amazing. Oh, I love that journey that you came upon. So
Yeah.
Now you had some, I really just loved all the subjects that you had in there, and they all had very different stories, different experiences, and it was really, you really captured their life and experience on there so well. How did it come about for you, Kevin, that you wanted to sort of like, you obviously heard about this. When was it you decided to turn this into a film? What was that moment for you?
Yeah, so Kayin had mentioned that we had started, we have another co-director on the project whose name is Todd Sills, and so Todd and I had made a short film that was highlighting a woman and her daughter living in an SRO in Chinatown. And we kind of made that just like with some friends and favors and not really thinking much of it. And then it started to get into festivals, started to do really well, winning awards and things like that. And then it ended up getting distribution with PBS.
Oh, excellent.
And so we were like, oh wow, this is like resonating with folks. And it was sort of, that film came out in 2016. It was sort of at this moment in San Francisco where folks were really starting to go from like celebrating that the economy was coming back from the 2008 recession to being like, this is getting really insane in terms of like the cost of living and the cost of housing in particular. And so and then in the process of making that short, we also sort of began to understand that there was, the Chinatown experience was kind of what most people were familiar with in San Francisco, but there was a more diverse community than just that experience. And so we wanted to kind of zoom out and show more of those experiences, and then also include more of the context and character of the city of San Francisco. And so really kind of like bring folks in, not just like what it's like to live in an SRO, but like to live in an SRO in San Francisco in this moment where there's like literally billionaires being made every day and people living in 80 square foot rooms in the same city. And so we kind of went from there. as Kyan said, realized we were biting off a lot more than we could chew. Brought her on, and then sort of like, just kind of like went from there.
Well, I love that it went from a short and then evolved into a feature length, and there was you had quite a lot of people involved in the project.
Yes.
A lot of different situations, different families. People by themselves to people with children, and animals. But I was amazed because I think what you did shine a light upon was you really went deeper with their experience, their lifestyle, what they kind of even been through. How did you both approach your subjects? And I know one of the things you have to have obviously is the trust element. How did you approach the subjects, and what was kind of that process like for you?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's two parts of it. So one is, these are fairly insular communities, and so having made the short before was really, there's no way we could have made the feature having not made that, because we worked with a community group in Chinatown that works with folks living in SROs when we were making that short, and they were really happy with the short. I think in part because what we were doing was different than what a lot of the reporting around the SROs in the buildings was, like in the nightly news and stuff like that, was being done. And so when we went to make the feature, they introduced us to community groups in other neighborhoods, in other communities.
Yeah.
And that was key to meeting these folks.
Yeah.
And the other piece of it is, I think, we like to call them participants, and part of the reason for that is when we were approaching folks, we were going to folks and saying, like, we know that you live in this situation, but like, where are you imagining yourself going, right? And sort of like let them kind of tell us what they imagined their story was going to be, and that was kind of what led us to who we were going to follow. So we'd like to call them participants because we went to them and we said, where do you imagine your story going, right? Like, where do you want to go? And we want to sort of like go with you on that journey with a camera, and sort of like encourage them to be more active in sort of like shaping the story that we're telling. And so like the folks that we ended up following were folks that like had really compelling sort of like wants and needs kind of thing in screenwriting terms, right? And so that's kind of how we landed on those folks. And I mean, I don't know, I feel like we got really lucky, the folks that we found, like they were all, the trust was pretty quick. I don't know. Like,
I think, spending time with them, of course, and then also in respecting some of their boundaries. Like, we pushed where we felt like we needed to, but also were very respectful when they said no.
Yeah.
Because, as a film team, we asked a lot sometimes, right? Like, we were sort of wanting to be in, like, a small space with them. with,
That's right. It's very personal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, that journey from just being there, translating, it must feel quite settling when someone who speaks first language Cantonese able to speak in the same language. It must feel about comforting them to open up more. Did you kind of find that more so?
Yeah, definitely. The language was a huge thing. Like being there was very important. Although because of the small space, actually, I was outside of the door while Kevin was inside. So
I'm like in the corner doing the camera, and Kyan has poking her head in so she could like maintain an eye line. It was, I mean, we have a photo of it. It's like ridiculous, but
no, I love, and so like, you sometimes don't know what you are going into until you're there on set experiencing it. You can have these things in documentaries where you have an idea of where you want to go, but sometimes you're surprised. I'm just curious for you both, what surprised you mostly from, or what things came about that you were kind of not expecting in the film, either on set in production or with your participants?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's the obvious thing, like I always tell the story of like, so one of the first shoots that we did was with Christina, who probably lived in one of the smallest rooms that we filmed with. And like, like most people have like a 24 to 100 millimeter lens on their like documentary camera. So we went in with that, and 24 is like reasonably wide.
Yeah.
But like, as soon as that shoot happened, I was like, I need to buy a wider lens. Like, it's not possible to shoot in these tiny rooms on this lens. And that was sort of interesting way that we kind of found some of the visual language of the film, like in the clip that you showed, like we found that sort of like device of like walking with folks through spaces on these wide lenses as a way to immerse you in their world by accident, because we were just like had the 17mm on the camera and were walking with them, and I was like, oh, I'm responding to this emotionally.
Yeah.
But I think also like in terms of like story, like I tell the story, like we started out making the film because we wanted to encourage people to think about this idea of like housing first, right? Like getting folks into housing helps them deal with like whatever they're dealing with. But I think one thing that we sort of got to witness firsthand in the making of it is like how hard it is for folks to move beyond that without any kind of assistance.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Like you just like, I don't know, like the things that they go through, the things that they had to deal with, even just to get to living in a room, and then beyond that are just like, so I don't know, more than I think a lot of people could manage. I don't know if you had.
Yeah, I think because the economics of it doesn't work. You know, no matter how hard they might be working, they still wouldn't be able to make enough to actually afford an actual apartment without assistance.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I think we found. And then the other was just how like generous people were with us. Was in some ways surprising because we understood, of course, time is very precious to them.
Yeah.
You know, but I think they really felt like they wanted to tell their story. They wanted to share what it was like. And in the end, really felt also that in capturing these moments with them, that they were able to then see their lives and sort of like appreciate how much how far they've come.
Absolutely.
By watching it.
Absolutely. And you both made very important points there. I mean, firstly, you know, I love California, but it's in a very expensive state. And when you go to places like, you know, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, they're expensive places to live. And like you said, you've got all these billionaires, and then you've got people that are just working the same hours, struggling just to actually get through for the basics of life. And they've all come from different circumstances. I think one of the things that I love the most about your film is that you had a real community of people. You know, they're all going through different things. They all had different goals and things that they've got, or things that they've gone through. And you brought that all together in this. Was that something that surprised you, that there was like almost like quite an intimate community in there as well?
I mean, it was, we were wanting to do that when we set out to make the film. I think we were pleasantly surprised that it worked once we once we got to that first rough cut, or the first like 3-4 hour cut. It was like, okay, the idea that we have been writing in all these grant applications and pitching, like, oh, we actually, this is real. This is, there are connections that we're feeling in the diverse stories, and you can sort of like make these associations in the film that we were thinking that we're going to be there. We sort of like suspected that they were there, but drawing them out, we were pleasantly surprised to find that we had done it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they did have some overlap in terms of experience that they had, but also like having Christina Motwani and Susie Smith on the editing team, like that really helped us sort of really shape how those connections were shown in the film.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, aside from putting a spotlight on a, you know, I mean, there's no doubt about it that it's really hard out there right now. I think we're in a very, very difficult time just to get through basic needs. And like you just said, like there's not enough space for people just to get ahead, just to actually jump over that mountain and just kind of have a little bit more, you know, a bit more ease in their everyday life. But I'm curious, like obviously taking this from a short film, which did very, very well, and then turn it into a feature, what did you want your audience to experience or take from your film?
I mean, I think the big thing that we always talk about is this concept of the housing advocates that we've been in conversation with, and like we always preface this, but like we're not housing policy experts. We're filmmakers, and we've talked to a lot of people who are housing policy experts. But the thing that they talked to us a lot about is this concept of like decommodifying housing. And so if you think about, instead of thinking about housing as like an investment or a sort of like reward that people get for like, you know, working hard and pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, thinking of housing as a tool that you can give people that enables them to live fulfilled lives and like whatever that means for them. And so if we think about, you know, like it kind of touches on this in the film, but like there's a lot of prejudice and a lot of associated shame in communities around like living in poverty, living
Yeah.
in less than ideal situations, when it's really not people's fault. It's really like a systemic issue.
Yeah.
And so that prejudice leads to people doing things like blocking affordable housing developments in their neighborhood, blocking multifamily developments in their neighborhood, things like that, which are actually things that would make the situation better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so really sort of like, I think what we're hoping with the film is people can start to reconceive how they think about housing as more like clean water or clean air. Like affordable housing is something that makes a community better.
Absolutely.
Regardless of who, like everyone in the community benefits when housing is affordable to everybody.
Absolutely, 100%. Okay, what's next? Where are we going next? Where are you taking us on the journey next, please?
With the film or?
Or with what, even with the film, or even the future with other projects?
Yeah, well, so with the film, we're in the process of negotiating distribution. We
Excellent.
just signed it with an educational distributor who will have the film out to schools and universities. And then
Good.
we're hopefully going to have a public broadcast deal that we can announce soon.
Great.
And then I have a project I'm working on. I guess it's about the movement to give non-citizens the right to vote in local elections in California.
Yes.
So I'm following some activists in San Francisco and in Orange County that have been working on this, kind of coordinating legal fights and local political fights to make that a
Yeah.
reality in the state.
That's great. Always good movements of what we need in this country. What about for you, Colleen?
Yes.
What's next for you too?
I'm turning back to narratives.
Yes.
And so writing a project, and then also in post for a mid-length narrative based in Chinatown.
Oh, fantastic. I love how you're celebrating the San Francisco. It's a beautiful city, and thank you for shining a light on these amazing people and Home as a Hotel. So really appreciate it. Kevin did a really great job. Welcome to New Filmmakers. Welcome back, Hyen. I'm looking forward to your third project now. But really appreciate it, and thank you so much for your film.
Thank you.